Hey guys, Christmas season is over, and we all got the gift that we always wanted: sky high hardware prices. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about how it's impacting the games industry, or what I suspect is going to impact it, and talk a little bit about Microsoft in particular, um, especially as it pertains to their dream of streaming games. So, getting right into it. Um, Everything's crazy expensive now. You've seen RAM that's like 5 to 10x in price. You've seen graphics cards suddenly jump up in price, and that's only going up as soon as Sam Altman over at OpenAI decided to burn down the RAM market. It's going to just continue to get worse all throughout 2026 and even into 2027. I'm I have no illusions of things getting better anytime soon. And now for the games industry, I've seen the people that in particular were looking at potential upgrades or getting backup hardware as soon as everything really hit the fan with Sam Altman screwing everyone over. They went out and they did the upgrades they've been putting off. They had, got extra hardware in case things break. And in the more immediate term, generally, like if we have any kind of issues, we're going to just have to, eat it. And for the bigger companies where they just have infinite money checks written, because, of course, that's not a big issue for them because it's just another line item and it's kind of whatever. On the other hand, with a smaller studio, um, basically the smaller, the more indie, the harder this is going to be for them because you've got, especially if you're doing console development, where you would need to actually buy a dev kit for either the PlayStation or Xbox, Switch, if you can get a hold of one. And for those, they're already very expensive. You're looking at least $5,000 to get kind of a mix of everything. And with everything going up in price between RAM and graphics cards, like we can pretty much assume that those dev kits are going to get more expensive. So it went from, if you wanted to buy everything, including dev kits and a computer for like a new developer for a game, you were probably going to be put out like $7,000-8,000. Now you're looking at 10,000. It's only rising. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, to get a suite of dev kits for a indie studio, they're going to be need to putting like $10,000 on the line. I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of computers. For most game developers, you don't need like a super beefy machine unless you're working on some like big 3D title, in which case you're going to need like 128 gigs of RAM, and that's like over $1,000 now, and it's going to go up. You're going to need a good graphics card. A lot of those graphics cards, they're going for like, I've seen some for over $4,000 for that were just, a couple $1,000s before. And this was already an issue where these, card manufacturers were kind of like raising the prices just to like hope that the crypto market would, buy into them. So it's a huge, huge mess. Now, in terms of games that are already coming out in 2026, I don't think we should expect anything really changing there. Everything's pretty much already set in stone. There's really no reason to change anything because no matter what they do, all their art assets are ready, their art direction is completed. And if it's going to need higher end graphics, like most of these places are already targeting like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S already. That's kind of like their min for getting things out there. And then you just got the extra settings for your PC players. For things that are a little further out, like 2027, maybe beyond, especially for games that are in the green lighting phase, I could totally see games that would otherwise have pushed for like super realistic graphics to be told to pare it back, because you're going to see a lot less growth in the PC market in terms of upgrading to higher end hardware. I imagine pretty much everyone that was looking at building a gaming PC in 2026, not all, but most of them are probably not going to do that. It's suddenly become so expensive. So we're not going to see the same growth and like better hardware adoption rates that we would have seen if we didn't have AI screw us all over. And because of that, like, and really great graphics aren't something that anyone's like, man, I really want like super amazing ray tracing and bloom. Like all those things are kind of just bells and whistles that we can't run on most of our computers anyway. The big thing I think we've all been wanting is more just like better art direction instead of just counting on, more polys and triangles to just make better graphics. Because even when the like Borderlands, when it came out, it was just a catastrophe in terms of performance. And that was running very poorly on console as well. So for that, hopefully people will pare back some of those requirements and say, hey, we want it to run on lower end devices, especially because you're going to see some people over time where they end up having like their video card, die. And they may not be able to replace it with even the same kind of video card because of the price. So they may end up downgrading, worst case. So it's quite possible over the next couple of years we see like the bar for like the average graphics card, instead of like getting better over time, potentially slightly decreasing. We'll see how it goes. I hopefully we see like a Steam hardware survey over time so that we can see kind of the impacts of what we're seeing on the PC side of things. For console, that's all going to get more expensive over time. It's already kind of a disaster. We've got a huge issue with just the PlayStation 5s right now, where they were using, instead of just your standard thermal paste, because that works and why use what works, they came up with their own thing, liquid metal. And as time went on, people discovered that liquid metal is failing. First they were saying, oh, don't stand up your console upright, and then they found out even if you lay it down flat over time and with use, that liquid metal does not perform correctly and it just blows up your CPU. So over time you're going to have more and more people saying, hey, I need this to be replaced. It's going to be a huge burden on Sony. I could totally see them looking at the forecast for that, in addition to the hardware issues that we're seeing with the price. And just, we could easily see like $1,000 plus consoles is like the standard by like 2027 if things get progressively worse. Now, hopefully things get better by 2028. But right now, like we need other people to jump in and actually try and like make basically more RAM. If you can have like some companies say, hey, I want to build RAM for our products, like laptops or whatever. Like I heard one company, I forget what it was, that said they were going to start building RAM so that they weren't relying on these major RAM manufacturers. But even if they, remove their demand from the market, there's already so much demand. You've got OpenAI eating up most of it, and you're going to have other AI companies over time that are going to also need to eat it up, because everyone's in a big arms race right now. And of that arms race, ChatGPT is the worst of the bunch of them. So I am so looking forward to that company imploding eventually, because there's no way they're getting a return on investment on all that garbage. Now, all that out there with like how things are, hopefully we'll hear in time more people saying, hey, we're going to get into the RAM market, or because the more we can get supply on the market, demand, can satisfy that. Hopefully the prices come down. Basically everyone's in a bad spot. PC's in a bad spot. PlayStation's in a bad spot. However, Microsoft, they have been spending tens of billions of dollars on their cloud infrastructure as time goes by. And they've been pushing for like more mobile stuff for a time, even though that's generally not a, Western market in terms of like Europe and the United States. We're very much more of like console PC folks, but mobile gaming is very popular in especially emerging markets where you've got like, smaller phones. With Stadia, when it came out from Google, basically everyone that I knew that was big on gaming had no interest. But I saw a number of people that were happy just playing like, games like Last of Us, Prince of Persia, stuff like that, that were perfectly happy with the streaming service at that time for those kinds of games. So if we have the ability, if prices do reach this sky high level in like 2027, but Microsoft is able to come out with like your $100 dongle, kind of like a Roku stick, and a control where you just plug in and like pay whatever regional rate is for Xbox Live services and you get streaming. They have that infrastructure that they could support it. Now, not all of the infrastructure that Microsoft's deployed is for games. It's all for their Azure web services. So all their cloud stuff, they compete with Amazon's AWS, which I know that means Amazon Web Services, but it's a big competitor. They are very well positioned to use this existing infrastructure that keeps growing year over year to hopefully push this streaming service that they could be very successful in particularly emerging markets. Because if you're looking at places, you've got some countries where they've got like tariffs on consoles and suddenly people are like, I can't afford it because of the tariffs by themselves. But if it's like tariff on like a $100, stick that's sent out and they're planning to get their money back on Xbox Live subscriptions, it's very possible that they could really dominate the market in these areas. And heck, there's people here in the States where if their whole thing is just like, well, look, I just want to play the, sixth remaster of like whatever video game, they're perfectly fine with streaming it. I'm sure if you're ever like, hey, do you want to spend like, $5,000 on a gaming PC or more, over $1,000 on a console, or do you want to spend like $100 and, maybe 50 extra for a control, maybe a bundle deal, especially if it comes with like 1 to 3 months of like Xbox Live for free. So just stream all those games and access that catalog. Xbox, if they are able to do this, has the ability to dominate the market globally. They have, and I know a lot of you were like, but this is Xbox we're talking about, which, yeah, because they're, the bureaucracy at that company is, it's next level. So it would require them to actually have a good idea, which is not really their strong suit. But it's something where, if we're looking at, like, I was hearing rumors of like 2027 release date for like a new suite of consoles. And if they're able to get the new Xbox console to take the learnings from the PlayStation to say, hey, we need to have backwards compatibility with this new console. And even if the new console is this high-end gaming PC that just has, Xbox, label thrown on there so that people are like, oh, I have an Xbox, and it's just functionally a PC, kind of like how the new GameCube is going to be for Steam, which is going to cost a lot more, which is going to be unfortunate in a couple months. That could still be very successful. I'm hoping that even if Xbox decides to do the streaming, that they come out with like their console, hopefully not a 2-tiered system like the Xbox Series S and X. That was a disaster. But even if they're just like, look, we're going to have like one basically super powered thing, they get the economy of scale so that they can kind of have controlled costs and like get it as cheap as they can for making as many units, and pair that with just a streaming option. I think that if Sony is still having to pay sky high prices, even with their economy of scale, if someone's told, hey, $1,500 for a console, or even just over $1,000, and they have that really cheap option, and they're like, oh, well, prices should go back down in another year or two, they could say, okay, I'll try this generation of Xbox. Especially if with getting that stick, you have access to like a huge library of games. So, Microsoft's only spending more on their cloud infrastructure over time, though a lot of money is going into like these little AI centers, which it is what it is. But yeah, it's going to be hard. I'd like to say there's like some positive news at the end of this, but the whole thing's just a train wreck, and it's only going to get worse over time. It's going to really impact indie studios moving forward, especially if they need to get hardware for people. because a lot of these indie studios, if they're really indie and they don't have a publisher, it's all out of pocket. So you're looking at potentially double the costs just to get someone off the ground. It's going to be, it sucks. It just really sucks. But yeah, I think that's about it for this one. It's not exactly the best, funnest news, but you know, it is what it is. So I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again in a future video. Farewell.